Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started with myself. I'm Danny Rosen. I work here. And this is an old friend of mine, Valerie Nuzzo, who is one of the prime movers of local Zephyr Theater, which is going to be putting on a performance here
March 20th and 21st.
Downstairs in the Orbit Gallery of a play that they wrote about Georgia O'Keeffe and Alfred Stieglitz. So anytime you hear about the Zephyr Theater, it's hot stuff. And now we're going to read a poem by a person named Evie Shockley, who has been an advocate for women for many years and currently teaches at Rutgers University in New Jersey. And this poem is called, hey, make a girl. This poem is called Sex Trafficking Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl in the USA, or the Nation's Plague in Plain Sight.
And now, reader, I come to a period in my unhappy life which I would gladly forget if I could.
Asia Graves looks straight ahead as she calmly recalls the night a man paid $200 on a Boston street to have sex with her.
The remembrance fills me with sorrow and shame.
If you want attention and you see that you're getting it, you just follow your feelings. Senior Araceli Figueroa, 17, said, "It's sad.
It pains me to tell you of it, but I have promised to tell you the truth, and I will do it honestly. Let it cost me what it may."
A plague more commonly associated with other countries has been taking young victims in the United States, one by one.
I will not try to screen myself behind the plea of compulsion from a master, for it was not so.
They give you money, drugs, and a fun time, but in the end they want your dignity and your self-respect. It's invisible chains that these kids are tied with.
Neither can I plead ignorance nor thoughtlessness.
By day, she was a schoolgirl who saw her family occasionally.
For years, my master had done his utmost to pollute my mind with foul images and to destroy the pure principles inculcated by my grandmother and the good mistress of my childhood.
The outreach efforts by high school and middle school officials in Washington, D.C., Virginia, Connecticut, Oregon, Wisconsin, California, and Florida come as experts say criminals have turned to classrooms and social media sites to recruit students into forced domestic sex and labor rings.
The influences of slavery have had the same effect on me that they had on other young girls. They made me prematurely knowing concerning the evil ways of the world.
Sold from Boston to Miami and back, Graves was one of thousands of young girls sexually exploited across the United States, often in plain sight. Though the scope of the problem remains uncertain, no national statistics for the number of U.S. victims exist. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children says at least 100,000 children across the country are trafficked each year. Globally, the International Labor Organization estimates that about 20.9 million people are trafficked, and 22% of those are victims of forced sexual exploitation.
I knew what I did, and I did it with deliberate calculation.
From ages 14 to 17, Katarina Rosenblatt says she was drugged, abused, raped, and trafficked by several people, including a classmate's father's friends, a neighbor who ran a trafficking house, and a man who offered her a role in a movie.
But oh, ye happy women, whose purity has been sheltered from childhood who have been free to choose the objects of your affection, whose homes are protected by law, do not judge the poor desolate slave girl too severely.
I want to raise the compassion bar so that any girl who becomes a victim is never seen as a girl who asked for it, said Andrea Powell, executive director of Fair Girls.
Among others, it chanced that a white, unmarried gentleman had obtained some knowledge of the circumstances in which I was placed. He knew my grandmother and often spoke to me in the street.
The perpetrators, increasingly younger, can be other students or gang members who manipulate victims' weaknesses during recess or after school. Law enforcement officials say.
He became interested for me and asked questions about my master, which I answered in part. He expressed a great deal of sympathy and wished to aid me.
At night, she became a slave to men who said they loved her and convinced her to trade her beauty for quick cash that they pocketed.
He constantly sought opportunities to see me and wrote to me frequently.
They often bait victims by telling them they will be beautiful strippers or escorts, but later pry them with drugs, ecstasy pills, cocaine, marijuana, and the like, and force them into sex schemes.
I was a poor slave girl, only 15 years old.
She was 16, homeless, and desperate for food, shelter, and stability.
So much attention from a superior person was of course flattering, for human nature is the same in all.
She was alone on a corner in Boston during a snowstorm when her first trafficker picked her up.
I also felt grateful for his sympathy and encouraged by his kind words.
Young people at the fringes of school, runaways looking for someone to care, and previously abused victims fall into the traps of traffickers who often pretend to love them.
It seemed to me a great thing to have such a friend.
He said I was too pretty to stay outside, so I ended up going home with him because he offered me a place to sleep and clothes to put on.
By degrees, a more tender feeling crept into my heart.
It's about love and thinking you're part of a family and a team.
He was an educated and eloquent gentleman, too eloquent, alas, for the poor slave girl who trusted in him.
When a little girl is sold by her impoverished family, or girls my daughter's age run away from home and are lured, that's slavery, President Obama said. It's barbaric, it's evil, and it has no place in a civilized world.
Of course, I saw whither all this was tending.
The man said he wanted to take care of her, but that she would have to earn her keep. He showed me the ropes, how much to charge for sex and for other sex acts.
I knew the impassable gulf between us. But to be an object of interest to a man who is not married and who is not her master is agreeable to the pride and feelings of a slave, if her miserable situation has left her any pride or sentiment. It seems less degrading to give oneself than to submit to compulsion.
She stayed and found comfort in other girls called wife-in-laws who went to area schools, got their hair and nails done together, and then worked the streets for the same man.
There is something akin to freedom in having a lover who has no control over you, except that which he gains by kindness and attachment.
Then came the violence. Her attempts to leave were met with brute force. He punched me. He stripped me down naked and beat me.
The master may treat you as rudely as he pleases, and you dare not speak. Moreover, the wrong does not seem so great when an unmarried man, as with one who has a wife to be made unhappy.
Other violent episodes left her with 8 broken teeth, 2 broken ankles, and a V-shaped stab wound just below her belly button.
There may be sophistry in all this, but the condition of a slave confuses all principles of morality, and in fact, renders the practice of them impossible.
You think what you're doing is right when you're in that lifestyle, Graves said. You drink alcohol to ease the stress. Red Bulls kept you awake, and cigarettes kept you from being hungry.
I was sure my friend, Mr. Sands, would buy me.
For 2 years, she was sold from tormentor to tormentor, forced to sleep with men in cities like New York, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Atlantic City, Miami.
He was a man of more generosity and feeling than my master, and I thought my freedom could be easily obtained from him.
They said they were escorts and that they made $2,000 a night. I figured if I go out one night, I'll never have to do it again. You can sell drugs once, says Alessandra Serrano, an assistant United States attorney for the Southern District of California. You can sell a girl thousands of times.
With all these thoughts revolving in my mind, and seeing no other way of escaping the doom I so much dreaded, I made a headlong plunge.
He was the first of dozens of men who would buy her thin, cashew-colored body from a human trafficker who exploited her vulnerabilities and made her a prisoner for years.
Pity me and pardon me, O virtuous reader.
They are as horrific and brutal and vile as any criminal cases we see, said Neil McBride, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia.
You never knew what it is to be a slave, to be entirely unprotected by law or custom, to have the laws reduce you to the condition of a chattel, entirely subject to the will of another.
I couldn't leave because I thought he would kill me.
You never exhausted your ingenuity in avoiding the snares and eluding the power of a hated tyrant. You never shuddered at the sound of his footsteps and trembled within hearing of his voice.
If we didn't call him Daddy, he would slap us, beat us, choke us, said Graves of the man who organized the deals.
I know I did wrong. No one can feel it more sensibly than I do. The painful and humiliating memory will haunt me to my dying day.
One girl was sold during a sleepover, handed over by her classmate's father. Another slept with clients during her school lunch breaks. A third was choked by her boyfriend, then forced to have sex with 14 men in one night.
Still, in looking back calmly on the events of my life, I feel that the slave woman ought not to be judged by the same standard as others.
For some of the time, Graves herself remained in high school, attending classes sporadically in boy shorts, small tank tops, and worn heels. In the schools, they thought I just dressed provocatively, Graves said of the teachers and staff who missed their chances to help her. Now, people are actually understanding that these girls are victims.
What could I do? I thought and thought till I became desperate and made a plunge into the abyss.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Valerie, for... I was so happy when Valerie agreed to read that with me. And now, tonight, Melissa Jefferson is here. She's a family advocate for victims of human trafficking and works at the Center for Children in Grand Junction. She along with Tom Acker are the prime movers of having this event tonight. So, Melissa.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you all for attending. It's not a very easy topic to listen to or to discuss. The Center for Children is a child advocacy center. We offer a platform for children to tell their experience of sexual abuse, physical abuse, or witness to violence. We're not associated with law enforcement or child protection. We're simply that child-friendly environment for kids to come and share their information. That said, we do see victims of trafficking, not a lot, a couple a year, and who knows how many go under the radar. And it is through that association, it was a natural fit to work with Western Slope Against Trafficking. And that relationship started back in, I think, 2016, 2017 with the former director, Melissa Jefferson. And so that's how I've come to know Tom. And this evening we're going to have some more readings. We're going to have a bit of discussion, and look forward to offering you some more information. Thank you for your attention to this matter. It's very important, and education is power. The more we learn, the better we can help those in need. Next you're going to hear from Jacob Richards. He's a historian and a journalist.
I just want to share a primary source here. I think it's really important when we look at our history to realize that the very first European presence in this area was the Old Spanish Trail and Fort Uncompahgre down in Delta. And that the historians nowadays very much like to emphasize the fur trading, but another big part of that economic driver was Native American and indigenous youth being sold in Santa Fe. This primary source comes from a man named Joseph Williams. He was kind of a crotchety old preacher. He left Indiana in 1841 to go to Oregon. He was pretty dissatisfied with things in Oregon, and he decided to come back to America, but he came the southern route. So he came south with some fur trappers to Santa Fe, and then Santa Fe east back to the United States. The primary source, if there's any nerds out there, is called A Narrative Tour from the State of Indiana to the Oregon Territory in the years of 1841 and 1842. And this little section I'm going to read kind of follows his travels from Fort Robideau, which was in northeastern Utah, to Fort Uncompahgre down by Delta. We had to wait there for Mr. Robideau about 18 days till he and his company and horse drivers were ready to start with us to the United States. This delay was very disagreeable to me, on account of the wickedness of the people and the drunkenness and the swearing and the debauchery of the men among the Indian women. They would buy and sell them to one another. One morning I heard a terrible fuss because 2 of their women had ran away the night before. I tried several times to preach to them, but with little, if any, effect. Mr. Robideau had collected several of the Indian squaws and young Indians to take to New Mexico, and he kept some for himself for his own use. The Spaniards would buy them for wives. This place is equal to any I have ever saw for wickedness and idleness. The French and Spaniards are all Roman Catholics, but are as wicked men, I think, as ever lived. No one who has not, like me, witnessed it can have any idea of their wickedness. Some of these people at the fort are fat and dirty and idle and greasy. July 27th. We started from Robideau's fort over the Whitney River and next crossed the Green and White Rivers. Next night we lay at Sugar Creek, the water of which was so bitter we could scarcely drink it. Here 2 of Robideau's squaws ran away, and we had to wait for 2 days till he could send back to the fort for another squaw for company for him. August 1st. We camped under a large rock by a small stream where we could get but very little grass for our animals. Next night we lay under the pictured rock, and being sheltered from the rain, slept very comfortably. Next day we traveled over rough roads and rocks and crossed the Grand River, Colorado, a branch of the Colorado which runs to the Gulf of California at the head thereof. Next day we crossed another fork of the Grand River and came to Fort Uncompahgre, below the mouth of the Uncompahgre River. August 14th, Sunday. I preached to a company of French, Spaniards, Indians, half-breeds, and Americans from Proverbs 14:32. Quote, "The wicked is driven away in his wickedness, but the righteous hath hope in his death." I felt the power of the words, and I believe some of the people felt also. I spoke plainly and pointedly to them, and felt as though I would be clear of their blood in the day of eternity. And it's just one of those kind of suppressed bits of history, but that is the foundation of our history here is human trafficking. And then we proceeded to build an Indian school here, right? And one of the controversies that the longest serving superintendent had was the outing system. So in the summers, they would lease the Native American youth to farmers and ranchers for the boys. The women students usually would serve as domestics for local families. And the people paid the Indian school for the labor. He was supposed to pay that money to the Indian students, but never did. And he was investigated for that at least 3 times by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So our area has a long and really started with this kind of history. So I wanted to provide that context as we listen to Tom Acker next, and it's my honor to introduce Tom, somebody I've worked with a long time and who I have a lot of respect for in his different works, standing up for humans and the human people that populate this valley. So thank you, Tom, and give that away.
Thank you, Jacob. The U.S. State Department trumpets that 20 years ago, the U.S. Congress ratified the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. Human trafficking is just the logical extreme manifestation of our culture's worst tendencies that foment the poverty that curses our society and which is one of the principal drivers of human trafficking. Martin Luther King Jr. proclaimed, quote, "The curse of poverty has no justification in our age. The time has come for us to civilize ourselves by the total, direct, and immediate abolition of poverty," end quote. MLK was murdered in 1968 for such prophetic statements. For us not heeding such pronouncements a half-century ago, today we witness daily bedraggled neighbors carrying their worldly possessions, many times moving back and forth over the same terrain. But what of those frantically striving to escape that destiny that our society has ordained that they should inhabit? Those vulnerable to the exploitation of human trafficking are the foreigners, the marginalized, those lacking life's basics, those living in fear, those suffering from societal rejection, the motherless child who's imprisoned, and especially vulnerable are the victims of our white supremacist culture. Richie Havens sang his song, which cried out to the listener, "Freedom, freedom. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home." He expressed the angst and urgency that our generation, I'm born in 1954, that's who I'm referring to, that our generation was provided a mere second in which the metaphorical historical door was left ajar, and the prophetic voices of Cesar Chavez, Bobby Kennedy, MLK encouraged us to pass through that door and to lift up those inhabiting the margins, the fringes, the underbelly, where conditions that were foisted upon them obliged them to be. Today our society has pretended to address the scourge of human trafficking. The Palermo Protocol was ratified by the UN in the year 2000, but toothless, unenforceable, where often the most powerful are able to prey upon the children, the poor, and the poor of the children. From Mar-a-Lago to China's Uyghurs in Xinjiang region, to hotel staff in Crested Butte, to H-2A visa workers and the BLM lands of Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah. The exploitation continues. But not all suffer. For a minority, human trafficking generates $150 billion annually. In response to the U.S. State Department's trumpeting National Human Trafficking Prevention Month, it's time for us to look with clear eyes at the state of the fight against human trafficking. We have written anti-trafficking laws that are almost impossible to enforce, negotiated by indifferent rich men whose lobbyists pressure them to water down bills, which are rarely enforced by a poorly trained phalanx of indifferent civil servants. Assistance to the survivors of trafficking is expected to be carried out by under-resourced social workers who are lacking the most urgently needed resource for the traumatized. safe housing, itself a contributing factor to human trafficking. And today, commemorating the month of human trafficking awareness and Martin Luther King Jr.'s plea to abolish poverty, let us recommit to ridding our society of the forces that create a world none of us should want for our children and grandchildren. King said, quote, "I believe that what self-centered men have torn down, other-centered men can build up," end quote. Former President Barack Obama likened human trafficking to slavery, which we need to recall. Slavery was directed against one particular group. Human trafficking can victimize anyone. But staying with the likening to human trafficking to slavery, let's listen to Nancy Morejon, the Dean of Cuban Letters, poem. We're taking us back to the 17th century Cuban sugarcane plantations. And like in human trafficking, a victim is lured by the trafficker into a psychological numbness, where the trafficker is the center of the victim's world and existence. Unlike what rarely occurs in modern sex trafficking world, here, the poetic voice awakens to her reality and implements her agency in a surprising demonstration of free will. The title of this poem in the English translation is "I Love My Master," Nancy Morejon. I love my master. I gather firewood daily to light his fire. I love his light-colored eyes, meek as a lamb. I spray drops of honey in his ears. I love his hands that deposited me on a bed of herbs. My master bites and subdues. He tells me stealthy stories while I fan his whole body, covered with sores and bullet wounds of days with sunshine and predatory warfare. I love his feet that pirated and traveled afar through the foreign lands. I rubbed them with the finest powders that I found one morning leaving the meadow. He stroked the mandolin, and out of his throat came sonorous couplets as if born from Manrique's throat. I would have liked to have heard a marimbula played. I love his thin red mouth, from where words emerge that I can't decipher. My language for him is no longer his, and the silk of time in shreds. Hearing the old guardians speak, I discover that my love meets out lashes in the boilers of the sugar mill, as if they were in hell, and that of that Lord God of whom he spoke to me without ceasing. What will he tell me? Why do I live in the ideal abode for a bat? Why do I serve him? Where does he go in his splendid carriage drawn by horses, happier than me? My love is like the weeds that cover the endowment, my only impregnable possession. I curse. This muslin robe that he has imposed on me, the vain lace which he ruthlessly foisted upon me, these chores for me at sunset without sunflowers, this colorful, hostile language that I don't pronounce, those stone breasts that can't even nourish him, this belly cracked by his immemorial whip, that this damned heart. I love my master, but every night when I cross the flowery path towards the cane field where we have sneaked love, I see myself, a knife in my hand, skinning him like a steer without guilt. Deafening drums beat don't impede me from hearing neither his brokenness nor his cries. The bells are calling me. As we deepen our awareness of the brutality that this crime entails, let us also deepen our resolve to undo the conditions of poverty, racism, classism, and continue the struggle for a more egalitarian society that provides the necessary support for all our neighbors. Thank you. Oh, you got it.
And now, John Nizalowski.
Indeed. Thank you, Zip.
Melissa, should we mention this, or
Certainly.
is this for the?
It's for Wasat. We're a nonprofit, and we use funds to promote, to educate the community. So, if you're compelled to give, we appreciate that.
And we also do outreach workers visits and deliver material items to them. So you're welcome to donate to our efforts.
All right, before I get started, I do want to mention a few things. I am not reading anything that is directly involved with human trafficking. Rather, I am exploring the situation at our southern border and the racism and oppression that has emerged from our really terrible policies. And it is what I'm exploring here is the world that promotes or gives the setting for human trafficking. So I'm sort of adjacent to, but connected with. All right, so to begin, and the other thing, I want two other things to mention. Pardon my really terrible Spanish pronunciation, and also my terrible pronunciation of indigenous languages. And the other thing I want to mention is if I don't mention an author to a poem, it's mine. Empire of the Abstract. And I'm beginning with, we Europeans showed up in the Western Hemisphere and screwed everything up. The Franciscans of Quorray lead the Tempero Indians to El Paso during the Pueblo Revolt of 1680. The Tempero never returned, forever exiled. Kiva in the ruined Catholic maze, the blending of faiths, the tilted world leading down to the eastern prairie hell. Please, St. Francis of Assisi, preach to the birds. At least they will not be caught by the European empire of holy abstractions. Now I will turn to, this is, I'm going to read part of a long piece by Emilia Paredes, and this is called In My House, Wasanipai. In my house are many mansions of virgin forest, rosewood, cedar, mahogany, rubber tree, mi palo rosa, mi cedro, mi aguano, mi leche caspi, mi mama coca. I am not pure, not white gold in my house. These have been sacrificed to the god of survival for generations, so that through the sweat, rubble, and blood, one fragrant lirio might bloom. I am not virgin gold, my eyes dark as the place between my legs. Mama Pacha, Terra Sagrada, tears in her eyes, naked and beautiful. The sky is overcast, it wants to rain, but can't. So it is with my heart, it wants to weep, but can't. There you say yes, there you say no. You say yes, you say no. Even in your wanting, you tell me no. Even in your wanting, you tell me no. My eyes dark as selva, watch your steel glare swords, slash roots and vines my mouth. I choke on your language. Your God again and again, my maiden body not ripe for your seed. Your child haunts my belly, half victor, half vanquished. Peru they called her, Hija del Demonio, devil's daughter, because her thin air humbled them, because her mosquitoes plagued their dreams, because they feared what her eyes told them. In my house, her name, Tua Huano Tinsuyo, means land of four worlds, La Costa, La Selva, Los Andes, and the seasons between them. In 1548, 8 million people worked, made love, warred, and worshipped. After 13 years of the Spaniards' solution, 1 million people survived to mourn our dead. Those who would not die, would not be counted or redefined, fled our homes for other lands. On the banks of the Apurimac River, our spirits spin gold thread from sun rays in the fevered minds of greedy men, then gather what is yet sacred to the sun, Inti, soul. Okay.
Who's that again, John?
Yes. Again, Amelia Paredes. So, we Europeans set up the borders. Bridges in borderlands. I went to the borderlands to die, learn the secrets of the Olmecs, and choose a new secret name. I went to the borderlands to find the lost gods, John Dillinger, Emilio Zapata, and Octavio Paz. At the borderlands, the full moon always rises twice. The mountains slide across the valley and streets host processions of Toltec kings. At the borderlands, poetic lines arrive by radio wave. Merchants sell lapis exilis at Volcano's edge. Beggars defy the laws on Sunday, and an old man sketches Aztec funeral effigies in the 16th century mansion of the dead governors. The borderlands contain both the crooked and the straight. Jupiter hangs over palms stirred by warm breezes, and the moon reflects off smooth adobe walls. I went to the borderlands to learn the real names of the stars. Cor Serpentis, Zubin Hakrabi, Caus Borealis. Instead, found the true bridge between light and shadow. Apparition. On a journey to Cachama, I am seeking this mountain, sacred to the Kumeyaay people, holy place of stone, sage, and cedar. Up from ancient Mexico, spirits from Tula dwell, here under the stars, bright Venus and Jupiter, the luminous Milky Way. I top a rise and see far off to the southwest a strange apparition, a black steel wave, a void like a rigid snake, an off-world evil manifestation. I am confused for a time, unclear about what I am seeing. Then I snap to it. The border, the wall, a metal dragon pulled up from the underworld, demonic barrier to the holy road. There will come a day when decay comes to the empire and we all breathe freely. Again, the spirit way from the south reopened, and the movement of people across the desert once more sacred and inviolable. That's about the first time I saw the wall.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting across the border is very trying and often deadly. This is an excerpt from Turtle Pictures by Ray Gonzalez. There was no one there No one waited by the irrigation canal. The gates were closed. The water was swift and dangerous. There was no one there. No one waited for the first man to come across. The border was closed. Border exclusion. This involves taking tons of tortillas, building stacks of them dozens of feet above the fence along the border, forming a real tortilla curtain for the hungry and the dead. He convinces the mojados to cross and carry their border wherever they go. It is the only way to avoid the patrol cars and the helicopter insects hovering over the black walls of two countries. If you carry the border wherever you go, it may be a line from the center of your chest running down between your nipples to your belly button, your stomach dirty with mud from the Rio Grande. Then it would be a vertical border oozing down your chest, not the horizontal line drawn over the heart to keep it beating and tame. They were watching on radar, couldn't believe how 40 illegals simply rose off the ground, some out of the river, and flew over the barricades, the fence below them untouched by the wings of flying people entering without a place to land. Ray Gonzalez. And then, of course, once you get here, it's not very pleasant. 3 poems by Francisco Alarcón from his book, Body in Flames. Yeah, I need some water. Natural criminal. I am a nomad in a country of settlers. A drop of oil in a glass of water. A cactus that flowers where one can't and shouldn't flourish. I am history's fresh and living wound. My crime has been being what I've been all my life. Prayer. I want a God as my accomplice who spends nights in houses of ill repute and gets up late on Saturdays. A God who whistles through the streets and trembles before the lips of his lover. A God who waits in line at the entrance of movie houses and likes to drink cafe au lait. A God who spits blood from tuberculosis and doesn't even have enough for the bus. A God knocked unconscious by the billy club of a policeman at a demonstration. A God who pisses out of fear before the flaring electrodes of torture. A God who hurts to the last bone and bites the air in pain. A jobless God, a striking God, a hungry God, a fugitive God, an exiled God, an enraged God. A God who longs from jail for a change to the order of things. I want a more godlike God. Letter to America. Pardon the lag in writing you. We were left with few letters. In your home we were cast as rugs, sometimes on walls, though we were almost always on the floor. We served you as a table, a lamp, a mirror, a toy. If anything, we made you laugh. In your kitchen we became another pan. Even now, as a shadow, you see us, you use us, you fear us, you yell at us, you hate us, you shoot us, you mourn us, you deny us. And despite everything, we continue being us. America, understand once and for all, we are the insides of your body. Our faces reflect your future. Okay. Now, I've been struggling with this reading because I'm like, oh my God, it's so dark. So I'm going to end with 3 pieces that are affirmational, that are celebratory, especially concerning diversity and how we should embrace the cultures of immigration. So I'm going to begin that trilogy. This is Ending Poem by Rosario Morales and Aurora Levins Morales. I am what I am, a child of the Americas, a light-skinned mestiza of the Caribbean, a child of many diaspora, born into this continent at a crossroads. I am Puerto Rican. I am U.S. American. I am New York, Manhattan, and the Bronx. A mountain-born, country-bred, home-grown Hibara child, up from the shtetl, a California Puerto Rican Jew, a product of the New York ghettos I have never known. I am an immigrant, and the daughter and granddaughter of immigrants. We didn't know our forebears' names with a certainty. They aren't written anywhere. First names only, or mija, negra, ne, honey, sugar, dear. I come from the dirt where the cane was grown. My people didn't go to dinner parties. They weren't invited. I am Carabina, island grown. Spanish is in my flesh, ripples from my tongue, lodges in my hips, the language of garlic and mangoes. Boricua. As Boricuas come from the Isle of Manhattan, I am Latino America, rooted in the history of my continent. I speak from that body, just brown and pink and full of drums inside. I am not African. African waters the roots of my tree, but I cannot return. I am not Taina. I am a late leaf of that ancient tree, and my roots reach into the soil of two Americas. Taino is in me, but there is no way back. I am not European, though I have dreamt of those cities. Each plate is different. Wood, clay, paper mache, metals, basketry, a leaf, a coconut shell. Europe lives in me, but I have no home there. The table has a cloth woven by one, dyed by another, embroidered by another still. I am a child of many mothers. They have kept it all going. All the civilizations erected on their backs, all the dinner parties given with their labor. We are new. They gave us life, kept us going, brought us to where we are, born at the crossroads. Come, lay that dishcloth down. Eat, dear, eat. History made us. We will not eat ourselves up inside anymore, and we are whole. And then, I really dig this next one. It's Mambo Love Poem. A reminder that love can be beautiful. Sandra Maria Estevez. Probably Estevez. Yeah, very. Carlos y Rebecca dance across the floor. They move in mambo cha-cha that causes the sweat of their bodies to swirl in a circle of tropical love. Carlos y Rebecca move and the room fills with blazes of red, flaming pianos breezing spicy tunes as coconuts fall from palm trees ancient to these children, as coconuts fall from imaginary palm trees ancient to the Borinquian souls. Imaginary coconuts fall to the beat of their feet in rhythm with the talking African drum. Rebecca y Carlos glide across the floor and two become one in the land of salsa. The sweat of their bodies mingles with flute blowing high over splintered wooden floors in notes that soar beyond the rooftops of El Barrio. They forget their pain in this land of joy as the clave answers the singing African conga, the dancing African drum, the conga quinteando, the African tongue. Rebecca y Carlos become one like two birds flying through the open air in mambo cha-cha to celebrate their joy, their feet no longer touching the ground. They dance, becoming jibaros in eagle wings, As Shango, Siabio, Sile enters their bodies, their sweat fuses with light like thunderbolts in the fiery desert, great wings galloping in flight. The light in their feet dancing the African beat with the singing African drum, the conga quinteando, the African tongue, marking the warrior's rhythm with the singing, dancing drum. Shango, Siabio, Sile enters their bodies, they flow magically into one. That's a beautiful poem. And I will finish again with one of mine. And this is a reminder that the earth doesn't have boundaries. We created these boundaries. Political institutions created the boundaries. The land is connected. The land is intersecting and flowing. I do apologize that I realize the Colorado River does not reach the Pacific Ocean. It is sucked out before it gets there. But geologists and hydrologists tell us that there are underground channels that still get to the Sea of Cortez. So, upriver from the Sea of Cortez. A vulture's shadow ripples over River Run, while far away a pony engine shuttles freight from track to track, its diesel murmur riding the soft wind from valley wall to valley wall. A heron spirals downward, settles in a pond by an abandoned factory. Rust, steel girders, a fat boiler graced by graffiti. South Side 13, Shy Girl E Gato. The muddy Colorado flows under the bridge, lost to view as it heads downriver toward the Sea of Cortez. And I remember holding my father's hand while peering across the gray waters of a lake 2,000 miles from here, watching the great flocks of migrating Canada geese circling in like the vulture, the heron, the shy girl, and the cat, the boundless cycle of time, life to death to life again. All right, thank you.
Thank you, John.
I think you're on, maybe? Danny? Somebody?
You wanna
Wrap
I
it
think maybe, unless you guys want to do it differently, I think Tom and Melissa and all of us will be here for a little while if anyone wants to chat and just as you're still sitting there, I'm gonna put on a brand new song that just came out today by Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
I'd be curious, Tom and I put some questionnaire out on your chair. Were there things on that surprised you about human trafficking?
Have you had a chance to look at that yet?
Mm-hmm.
The handout?
Yeah, I would have been surprised, but I've heard Tom speak before, and I knew the answers to some of these, which is the first time I was surprised by some of these. I guess, like the human trafficking, I always thought, oh, it's women and children, but also a lot of men.
Yeah.
A lot of that are workers and trafficked that way. And then it made sense, but I'm like, oh.
Well, I think that's the salacious side, that gets more press. Sex trafficking gets more press than labor trafficking. Something that Tom has been involved in for a lot of years, I'll just introduce and he can flesh it out, but he and a lived experience sheep herder visit a number of herders in the West, Colorado, Wyoming, Utah. Done that for a number of years.
Yeah, and so Melissa's referring to the Sheep Herder Project, which over the years, through collaborations, we were able, when I began that in 2003, the herders were making $700 a month, and because of our working with Colorado Legal Services, documenting through surveys and questionnaires the the situations they're living, their wages, etc. As things transpired, we tried to go the political route. That was a disaster. You couldn't get the Colorado legislature to understand what this was. I remember we took a couple of legislators up into the California park in the summertime, and you know, it's beautiful, but their reaction was, "Oh, this is just like summer camp." And then we took them into the Utah desert in the middle of winter, and it was about 20 degrees below zero, and they didn't even want to get out of the car, you know. And so we said we got to do try another strategy. And so Colorado Legal Services underwrote our activities as outreach workers and doing the survey. We published it in a publication, if you want to look it up. It's called Overworked and Underpaid. I'd be glad to dig it out for you. It's on the web. But what we were able to do towards justice, whose managing attorney is David Seligman, who is running for AG right now, and I wholly endorse this guy. He headed up the team that sued the Department of Labor and forced them to raise wages. So now workers are making about $2,003 a month because of those efforts. But this is all about collaboration. It's all about gaining insights. The lived experience person. If I didn't have my colleague, there's no way this would have happened. So we're teams, right? And that's one aspect of it. But the fact of the matter is, I hear stories. I mean, I did interpretation for a guy from Colombia who was trafficked by a relative, and he got here, and he's in one of the resort towns, and he interviewed with HSI and Colorado. We have a task force here that does human trafficking. Did the whole deal, but Donnie comes in, and all of a sudden HSI, Homeland Security investigations, they're all of a sudden enforcing immigration. 80% immigration. So there's no more looking into drug trafficking, looking into labor abuses, looking into anything. This is where that is right now, and so it's up to us to do these things. I mean, I think we've all pretty much realized government is pretty much, and so until we can get it turned around, it's up to us to kind of address these things, become informed, collaborate, do your bit. Everybody's got a specialty that they have, and so.
I think the other thing about human trafficking is it's so complex. We've been working with a woman. Her daughter's trafficked. And that's here in Grand Junction, and it's a horrific tale. I would want to taint your mind with some of the details of what that woman has gone through, but because this woman has got a drug issue, so there's this other component where law enforcement, the first thing that they see is the criminal piece, not what this woman is going through. So there are ways that, we're looking at, Brian Gildia is a professor over at CMU. He's has some experience with human trafficking and trying to look at a different court system that might be able to look at those cases a little bit differently.
Yeah, judges, the legal apparatus needs to be trained to understand what human trauma is and how people react. The psychological things, like they'll ask you for a chronology when they're doing an investigation, and a traumatized person is going to say, well, what I remember is the color purple. Mm-hmm. And they're like, law enforcement is like, these guys get this much training. Right now, the Post Academy at CMU, they give them, 2 hours?
It's a 2-hour online training, I think. It's a start.
Yes, we worked hard, but you can't expect these guys to have the skills to really develop an investigation or anything. And again, the resources. Mm-hmm. It's just too... So, yeah. A little dark.
And the remoteness too of the guys that the sheep herding community. I interpreted for a gentleman who was injured because I did interpreting for work comp cases.
Hey, they may not be able to
Oh,
hear
I'm
you in the
sorry.
back. Yeah.
I interpreted for a gentleman that was a sheep herder, and he was injured, broke his leg, and they live in these little campers out in the middle of nowhere, and the boss was their source for food and whatever other necessities they had. So they would come every couple of weeks or whatever and drop off a load of groceries for him, and they were supposed to be communicating either by radio or by phone. Boss wasn't picking up his phone. This guy was injured. He was there for 2 weeks with a broken leg until the next grocery run came, and they finally got him to a doctor. But the gist of the whole thing was that he was in all this pain and not eating because they didn't have any food left, and they ended up getting him, because he had workers' comp rights. He did get to a hospital and get a surgery and then go to a rehab place, but they fired him in the meantime. And his boss came to see him once and gave him a plane ticket back home to Peru.
And this is not unusual, that you're no longer, because John's poem of I'm a carpet, I'm a utensil in the kitchen, etc.
Right, yeah.
These are
once they're no longer,
these are tools.
Yep. Once they're no longer
implements.
a viable tool, they're gone.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So and frankly, our system, the H-2A visa program, is really not made humane. The legislation that's being proposed right now is to guarantee workers that they can come in, but there is no access to citizenship. So you will never be a 100% human being. You'll be
Right.
a functioning tool in
Right.
our society. So these are the things that we really need to talk out about and make our legislators understand this is absolutely unacceptable. We have to join the human race.
Right. And they just updated the H-2A visa worker program too, that previously employers were obligated to provide housing for these guys, and they're mostly mobile homes that cram about, between 10 and 15 people into the same space. Now they've docked their wages $2 an hour to pay for the housing. It used to be part of their package. So.
And then this is a really serious, because this program's been going since 1984,
Yeah.
and this has never happened before. This is something very new.
Yeah. Well, because the environment was right for them to be able to get that
Yeah.
passed. Yeah.
And they don't have to tell the workers that they're doing it, by
Right.
the way.
The other
Yeah.
thing that those guys do is many of them pay their own passage from wherever they live in the country they're coming from to a consulate that's closest to their home, which is usually, a lot of the guys go to the consulate in Monterey, and they have to house themselves, feed themselves for however long that process takes. That is supposed to be absorbed by the employer. They're supposed to get that money back when they get here. Probably 50% of the guys that I knew that worked under H-2A never saw that money again.
Yeah.
We worked with a woman from Honduras, and I'll keep it short, but she was trafficked in Florida. She ended up in Colorado. And
Labor trafficking.
Labor trafficking. And she was not able to, the government was looking, and she had her case before the government, but she was not able to work. So going on 2 years, what is somebody to do? How do you feed yourself? How do you keep your sanity? She lived in the homeless shelter at Pathways, and unbelievable what these people were.
The hoops they're meant to go through. And so that's what when I was reading what I was talking about, these laws that are impossible to apply, and then the resources are so limited, and the people that are trying to hold this whole thing together, I mean, it's just, well, you're one of them, it's just watching these things not function. There's no connection between this woman traumatized, and they're saying, well, you got to go take classes at the library, and she's like, I don't even have a job. It's just, yeah.
So can you address for everybody in the audience here, who, we know the statistics, we know some of the stories. I actually think that idea of remoteness is really interesting because with the guys in the in the trailers, you can imagine the remoteness. But then when you think about people who are trafficked and who are right amongst us, I mean, it's a very different kind of remoteness.
Right.
So I guess my question is, with an awareness of the problem, what do normal people do?
Right now, well, you want?
No, go ahead.
Okay, right now, Audrey Sapansky, she's got a hyphenated last name, I can't remember, but she's in geography at
SL,
CMU.
she just goes Dr. SL.
Yeah, she is absolutely a giant, and she has gotten a grant from the National Justice Institute for $1 million and change to measure prevalence of human trafficking at the southern border, right? And so really, what needs to be done is listening to the voice of the people that are subject to this, the marginalized, and then respond to what the cues they give, instead of trying to invent stuff that you think is the cause or whatever. So that's kind of not really answering your question, Brenda, but I think the most important thing that we would always say is get informed, steer clear of the salacious stuff. Human traffickers prey, they're often trusted adults in the room, like the school teachers in the one vignette they read. Unfortunately, one of our collaborators is a lived experience family child trafficked. And she has provided an immense insight into what the reality is in our society. So families protect. Families say, oh, come on, dear. She was dismissed all the time that she was telling her adult surroundings that things are weird. And so that's, for me, those are the kinds of things. We don't want to look at this stuff. It's really scary. But you need to look at the telltale signs. Why is Uncle Bruce going off with the kids all the time? And I'm not using that as that's just an example of the kind of things that can evolve into human trafficking.
Ask questions. Ask questions of people if you have suspicions, and if you call hotlines if you're unsure. I think the kids that have come through the center that have been trafficked would be 50-50 sex and
If you want to hand those around.
drug mule.
Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you. Put your work.
The card that's going around, it has our website, and you can look us up online. Yeah, it's a kind of overwhelming thing because, frankly, I think we really need to start understanding it's a product of an unjust society that marginalizes people and makes them vulnerable, and that's what we need to address, because it has lots of other manifestations, not just human trafficking, clearly.
I have, there's a brochure on the table here for the Center for Children, and then there's also a sheet that another one of our colleagues put together, Sarah Bradbury. She teaches some classes at Western State University, and that sheet, it got a little bit squished. That sheet kind of highlights some of the issues with kids and keeping an eye peeled. Traffickers are where kids hang out, and as far as the center goes, since 2020, we've seen an uptick in online predation, and so that's watching out for your kiddos and
A recent article spoke about in the homeless shelter, kids that end up there, and if you're involved in the justice system or you're taken out of your home for whatever reason, sooner or later you're going to become needing housing or a home. And of course, because your desire is for family, the kids in the homeless shelter, if up there on North, if there's a kid in there, a minor or a young adult, that place shuts down in the morning. Yes. And they're out in the street. And the traffickers are out there and the pushers are out there, and they're all just waiting because they know it. And somebody equated it to like shooting fish in a barrel. Those are victims made, and that's systematic because that homeless shelter should provide a service to those kids that they don't go back out into the street and become victims. Those are the things that we really need to start looking at.
Who do you think we should be contacting about these issues? Is it more local that has influence over them, or statewide? I mean, I know the mess in Washington. I know what to do there, what I need to do there. But on the ground here, what have you found most effective, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
I mean, the people that are, as much as I love them, the law enforcement folks that are working with the homeless community and others, their hands are tied. The laws are just kind of screwy. Example, this HSI investigator, we had another case where a human trafficking victim said she was being trafficked. I reached out to him because the trafficking task force for Western Slope suggested I talk to this guy. And so I said, she says she's being trafficked. And he said, let me check her out. She's got 2 warrants against her. And by the way, traffickers do forced criminality and they make you go do stuff. She's got 2 warrants out against her. If I go and see her, I'm going to have to arrest her. And I'm like, nice. Great the way this system's set up. And so I think being at the local level is more important than going up the food chain. There are entities in our community, for example, the Laboratory to Combat Human Trafficking. They have a website that is the name of you. If you Google it and go, this is human trafficking, it'll take you to their website. It's a wealth of information. They are a local resource. They are very insightful about who knows what and what levers are available to them. They're a good lobbying organization. They're aware of the legislation at the State House. So I think they're a good place to go. I think the most important thing for us to do right now is be informed. And then at the local level, I mean, I'm sorry, the homeless shelter it's a tragedy, and I'm working with the homeless. Kathleen, where'd you go? We're doing the We Share program, and those guys come in and go, the homeless shelter, man, I wouldn't go back in there for $1 million. Drug pushers, violence, everybody's using. It's like, well, can't we do better than that? And there are a number of churches in the community. First Christian Church, they are really thinking. They've got showers. They're really thinking of expanding the way. They're the ones by Sherwood Park, on First and Sherwood Park. They're thinking about expanding their program for the houseless people, because again, these are the people that get victimized. And so those are some of the things that are going on in our community that, we live here. We have connections, and if we don't have them, we should go find them and make ourselves available. There's lots of ways. These kids, John Mocklame started the house a number of years ago, and frankly, I don't know the backstory, whatever, but it was with the intention of finding a place for young homeless people to find safe space. So
that's been absorbed by Hilltop. It's still
thank you.
Still going.
Yeah.
That's a good program.
Yeah, I mean
Connections, it's called.
I wondered if there's communication between different parts of the state when you suspect that someone's being trafficked and they disappear when there's a whiff of something going on. So I'm just curious how that works. I know as a teacher, when I would report something to social services, these families, they move, and they move quickly, like overnight. And it was always, I'm just wondering how you can trace or find a way to get inside that network to get more information.
I don't don't know about the confidentiality between school districts,
Oh,
or if that's, you know, if you can share information.
Oh, no, as a teacher, I
Yeah.
absolutely couldn't share anything
Yeah.
to anyone. And, but some of these kids should have been noticed and reported to social services.
Yeah, I don't.
There are families that I've worked with, and you're just surprised. They don't come back, you know, they're gone. But
I
that's
don't think
another-
social services has a lot of that. They don't have a lot of teeth. I mean, they can do a founded finding, and what that means is if a parent, you know, so if the law enforcement is involved, that's a whole different deal, you know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because they would come to the school and remove children,
Mhm.
you know, if it wasn't trafficking, but other issues. And then the other thing I wanted to say is, I know someone who works for the airlines, and the airports are a place where, you know, there's a lot of trafficking going on. And I know that flight attendants are trained minimally, but to be aware of what might be a situation that just doesn't feel right. I don't know a lot about in depth how that worked, but.
And hoteliers, that's, you know, some of the education that's important for just different entities to be able to keep an eye out, you know what some of those signs are, and,
Right.
and watch for those and report.
And then, as far as peers for the young girls who are being trafficked, I think sometimes they're more likely to share what's going on maybe with a peer than with reporting to an adult. So I wondered if kids are given any kind of information or just how to be on social media, or how to be when someone is making an advance towards you, and you know, what are your options?
We would love to get into the school district.
Yeah.
We're this close, the center's really close to an MOU with a school district,
Ah.
and that would be great. We, you know, knowledge is power, you know,
Absolutely.
and people are, you know, so I think we have to be sensitive how we word things. You
Yes.
can't say sex education, it's personal safety, internet safety, relationship safety. Do you know there's next week there's a summit being held. It's with the Colorado Office of School Safety from Denver's coming over, and they're having a summit with students to say what they need, and you know, kind of coming from the horse's smell, so to speak, of what's
Yeah.
going on in school. You know, relationships, teen violence, teen dating violence. And I think, again, you know, listening to what people need, we always want to, you know, fire hose at people. This is what you need, but we need to listen,
Yeah.
you know. So, again, conversation like this, and you know, I mean, we do a lot of education for families that come through the center, around different things too, you know, internet safety and that sort of thing. And we're certainly open to anybody that would want to, you know, come in and ask for, you know, parent guide on social media and platforms and that kind of thing. So we give out a lot of information that way to families that aren't necessarily in for, you know, a forensic interview. Yeah.
Do the high schools here have a school resource officer from?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think middle school and high school, I think.
And they're part
Middle-
of
yeah,
the
middle school and
Grand
high school.
Junction Police Department?
I'm sorry?
And they're part of?
Yes. Yeah.
Officers,
They're not
someone
sheriff's
from
department?
The sheriff or the?
No, there's PD and there's PD and SO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just fun facts, if there's such a thing. The current administration has pretty much neutered any, because there was an office within the State Department that helped educators and parents and the you know, businesses that do internet make sure that they could ensure that there wasn't trafficking activities and those sorts of things going on. That's been closed. That office has been closed. And as I mentioned, local law enforcement, the Homeland Security investigations, they're doing enforcement of the border. And so those are the things that we could talk to Hurt about, say, what about these things? Because, and there's something else, our media is not doing its job. Our mainline media, I heard these things from a research project that the Guardian out of the UK wrote about. New York Times hasn't touched it. Washington Post, nada. Denver Post, nada. So if we're consuming those organs, or what you want to call them, we should say, you guys need to kind of cover things a little bit more broadly instead of the safe things. So, yeah. Sorry, guys.
No, thank you for listening. I mean, again, just getting a little bit of information goes a long way, and so these are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, thank you, Danny, Jacob, John.
Thank you, John.
I really like the poem you read by Rosario Morales, was about the Boricua, talking about her New York.
Oh, yes.
Shittle.
Yes. Right, yes. The combination of ethnicities.
You just have to laugh. It's so true. It's so right on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It's yeah, Rosario